a great age is estimated to be around about 25,920 years. And it's made up of 12 ordinary ages, and each ordinary age is approximately 2,160 years. So this is the time it takes for the sun to actually go right round the whole ecliptic circle when it's seen on one day of the year, on the same day each year. And the markers of time for these ages and great ages is to do with the solstice suns, when is the midsummer and midwinter sun on key parts of that ecliptic as it moves around. And its movement is called by astrologers the precession, because it's not the same movement that we're used to sort of every year, the sun cycle every year and so on. So for many people it appears to go backwards, but actually it's the real movement of the sun as seen on one particular day of the year. And it's midsummer and midwinter days which are the key important years for this. And the key marker on the ecliptic to say when we're passing from one great age to another is to do with where the galactic meridian crosses the ecliptic. And those are the only two fixed points on the ecliptic, because stars can't be taken as exact markers because they move slowly over time. But where the meridian of the galaxy crosses the ecliptic, that stays put, so it's said. So those are the 2 points on the ecliptic opposite each other, which are taken as the key markers of time. And in fact, in terms of the sky, if you look up at the sky and look at the sun's path through the sky, all the geometry of the sky is laid out from that, the diameter stretching between those 2 points. All the geometry is laid out from that. I call them the AA points, these marker points. And the geometry of the 12 equal signs of the zodiac was laid out from this as well. And the center, I should say, the center of the ecliptic is actually what's called the occult or hidden pole, the hidden North Pole or hidden South Pole. It's not marked by a star that we can see. And because of the wobble of the Earth, it makes us project the axis of the Earth northwards, for instance. So the North Pole projected into the sky doesn't hit the occult pole. It's a bit off. Celestial North Pole is actually moving all the time in a circle around the occult pole. So it can be very, very confusing, all this, these two different ways of seeing the sky. But the main fundamental way is to understand the ecliptic center is the occult pole, and the main geometry is laid out from that. And then we make adjustments for that with how the North Pole moves around it. Well, it's said, oh yes, and the geometry of the 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 equal signs or segments of it, it's laid out with the main axis from those two cusps, what are called the cusps or AA points. And then you get the geometry of the 12 laid out from that. And then they're marked so that the one cusp is the Gemini-Taurus cusp, and the other cusp opposite it is the Sagittarius-Scorpio cusp. Now, it's said in tradition that when the midsummer sun is on the cusp of Gemini-Taurus, which means the midwinter sun will be on the cusp of Sagittarius-Scorpio, that is the marker for a new great age, the end of an old great age and the new great age. Now, the sun has a certain width. For the center of the sun to move just 1 degree on the ecliptic, it takes it 72 years, but the width of the sun is ½ a degree wide. So therefore, for the whole sun to traverse each point or each cusp, it takes 36 years. Now, different astrologers or different astronomers actually argue about exactly where the meridian of the galaxy crosses the ecliptic. So there's a little bit of divergence. And it may be that the midwinter cusp is different to the midsummer cusps, just slightly. So taking a summary of what people have felt happening and so on, and celebrated too. If you take the millennium date, 2000 years date, the millennium, as the center point of the sun passing over that cusp, then you get a whole 36 years of 1982 to 2018. If, however, you take the Mayan date of 2012 as the midpoint, then you've got the 36 years period as 1994 to 2030. So just those two dates actually have a 12-year discrepancy between them, if you see what I mean. And both dates could be true, you know, but it just depends which cusp you take and where the sun is exactly in it. So what I'm going to share with you is something I got from direct inspiration, really, and working in certain landscapes, particularly one in North Germany, where it's a whole landscape zodiac centered on the Echtensteiner. There, it's quite a famous place. The whole zodiac laid out there. So I and my German friends have been working with that for a long time, and suddenly the inspiration and knowledge came from above, you could say, but also from below, feeding it. As Bacon says, we have to acquire knowledge from above and from below, and then test it all out. Well, the inspiration came that we've entered, last year we've entered a 12-year cycle, which is equivalent to a Jupiter cycle. Jupiter takes 12 years to go to be seen from the Earth, passing through the 12 signs of the zodiac. So it's a 12-year period. So that's why it's called a 12-year cycle is called a Jupiter cycle. So that's why I've called it this. And it has a significance. But it kind of fits in with this discrepancy between the two dates of when, you know, when the new great age actually started. Was it 2018 or was it 2030? There's a kind of 12-year discrepancy. You got through the gateway and then into the new. So what is it? I don't know. We'll have to see from my own experience. The only thing I do understand is that we're going through a mega test as humanity as a whole right at the moment. Now, a lot of people are celebrating the recent close conjunction, great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, and it was very close one, which is unusual. I mean, they happen every 20 years, so it's not an unusual happening, but for them to be seen almost coinciding with each other is quite unusual, and it's called a close great conjunction. And this happened at midwinter, just past 21st of December 2020. And it's celebrated by a lot of astrologers because the actual conjunction happened in 0 degrees Aquarius. That's the cusp of Capricorn Aquarius in the sky. And it means that those planets are starting to enter into Aquarius. And so it was seen, well, yeah, you know, might as well take this as the marker of entering the Aquarian age of Aquarius. And why not? I mean, it's quite significant in itself, particularly as it came at midwinter. So it's these certain happenings, when they're unusual, they do seem to mark important moments in time. That's for things that are going to happen on Earth, or have already started to happen. And one can trace historically previous great conjunctions that have happened to Saturn and Jupiter. And, you know, 400 years ago, there was one, for instance, in 1623, which is when the Shakespeare Folio and Bacon's Latin version of his Advancement of Learning were published, the two together like twins. Pretty important. And we know that Bacon was friends with great astronomers and so on at the time. And so they probably calculated, right, this is the moment, this is the year when we're going to publish these two books. And again, there was not such a close conjunction, but nevertheless a big conjunction of Saturn, Jupiter and Mars in 1603, 1604, which marks what the Rosicrucians called the making themselves public for the first time. Having prepared their work in secret, they would then make themselves public, and they called that the opening of a Christian Rosy Cross's tomb and other symbols of it. Also said, as you know, that Paracelsus forecast that when a great light would appear on Earth, which he called Elias the artist, that would help humanity to know all things. It's like the starting point for it. So that shows you how important these certain time periods are when they're marked like this in the sky. Now, it's interesting actually what Francis Bacon said about some of these things. He's quite clever. He was very cryptic. He's a great master, and he actually says he deliberately set out to obscure the wisdom of what he's saying, so that only those with eyes to see and ears to hear and minds to understand will actually get it. So, well, you can think what you like about that, but anyways, writing tends to be obscure, but beneath it, once you get into it, there's some very deep things there that he's giving out. So in his Advancement of Learning, for instance, he says this about the planets: but this is that which will dignify and exalt knowledge, if contemplation and action be more nearly and straightly conjoined and united together than they have been, a conjunction like unto that of the highest planets, Saturn, the planet of rest and contemplation, and Jupiter, the planet of civil society and action. So in that, he's giving you a little description of what those two planets mean to us symbolically and with the effect they can have on us in some sort of way. So Saturn's equated with knowledge, or that means illumination, knowledge of truth, which is the same thing as what we call illumination or revelation. And Bacon also equates that with rest and contemplation, which another name for rest is peace. You know, it's the Sabbath, it's the seventh day, the day of rest, the day of peace, because that's the day of illumination. We actually know the truth of what the light is that was born on the first day. So it takes that sequence or pattern, if you like, which is equated to, could be any time period, but it takes place in eternity. A pattern set up of 6 days of work, and then finally revelation, the day of peace, the day of rest and contemplation, where you have knowledge of truth, where you know that you've learnt to love God, who is love, the divine knowledge of truth. And then Jupiter, he calls the planet of civil society and action. And Jupiter is known in Kabbalah, for instance, as representing grace or mercy. But this is the mercy, the love of God, or the love of love, the divine love, poured out in civil society. So this is what Bacon's talking about. It's that wonderful grace, mercy, that goodness. He talks about it later on as goodness in action in society. And that those who do that are real Jupiters. They're real, what in the East is called the guru. They're real teachers or healers or friends to each other. You know, friends are teachers to each other, and they're also healers and so on. And we all perform these roles to everyone we meet or can meet, whether they're friend or not. In other words, love each other. So in these two planets, you have Saturn and you have Jupiter. They actually represent what Jesus gave as the great rule that we should follow, the divine law. Love God, who is love, and love each other. Love God, who is love, which is the divine, love the divine, and love each other, love the human. Saturn represents that divinity, and Jupiter represents that humanity. We need to marry those two together, marrying heaven and earth, as it were, the Hermetic teaching. So moving on from that, the Saturn-Jupiter great conjunction will happen approximately every 20 years, or every 19.85 years to be exact. And they go in certain movement through the sky. But what I'm going to take you into is the precessional movement, because we're talking about initiation here, which is something a little different. In tradition, Saturn was known as Kronos to the Greeks, and Jupiter was known as Zeus to the Greeks, and they're father and son to each other. So there's another sacred equation. The Father and I are one. Zeus and Kronos are one. The marriage again of Saturn and Jupiter. So you can see what this conjunction of planets mean, and why it's called the Great Conjunction rather than just an ordinary conjunction. So my own perception is that we've started a 12-year series, which is the final part of the gateway. We're leaving this great gateway 36 years or more in time, and we're being the last, what in the Bible is called the Last Judgement, the final chance to make the grade, as it were. And so that's why I've called it a 12-year Jupiter-Kalki-Kali Cycle. I'll give it a full name now, Jupiter-Kalki-Kali Cycle. From 2020, because we've had 1 year already, up to 2031. And the aim, as I understand it, is to test, initiate, and raise humanity to a higher or better way of living in this world. In other words, to rid the world of corruption and evil. It actually is marking the time period of worldwide mega crisis. As a very wise person called Sir George Trevelyan told me a long time ago, crisis actually means a breakdown in order to break through to something better. So it's not crisis, oh, just in despair. It actually means make that extra effort, break through, and you'll automatically start creating something better as a result. Breakdown to breakthrough. I mean, many psychologists now work with that way. They know, they understand that and how it works. And I do think it's like the Last Judgement. I think there are small judgments and big judgments, and this is a particularly big one. And as the Egyptians did, it's represented by weighing the heart in the balance, in the scales, against the feather of truth. In other words, is your heart light enough, or is it heavy like stone? Or is it light from its love? Love makes things light. And so all our hearts are being tested, being weighed in the balance. And as it's the time of, it's also known as the time of the second coming, the end of a great end of time. And so it's said that this is when the great avatars appear. Well, Jesus referred to it as the second coming of Christ. But in the Eastern tradition, it's associated with Kalki and Kali. Now, I'm just going to go through the meaning of these names. Jupiter is the same as Zeus, and it represents mercy, compassion, joviality, wisdom given, spoken, or taught to others. And that can be done through word, or it can be done through gestures, or it could just be done through action. You know, the real teaching is through what people do. So Jupiter is the guru. And the great guru is known as an avatar or incarnation or appearance of God on earth. To us, that's what avatar means. And Jupiter teaches while he tests. Jupiter wields the lightning thunderbolt. Now that a lightning thunderbolt is sound and light, two things together. You know, it's equated with the divine light that was born on the first day of creation. It is sound, it's vibrating as sound, but it appears as light, a lightning thunderbolt, to illuminate the darkness and turn it to light, to create the new and destroy the old. Jupiter brings out the best in people whilst transforming the not so good into something better, or else purging and destroying it if it can't be transformed. Now we ought to remember this. The teachers are both have the jovial face and also the severe face. They're sort of double-faced, if you like. And Jane, the great god Janus, also represents that, merciful and also severe. And that's how different traditions have always described divinity. And the severe side is to do with law, with justice, and so on. Righteousness, what's called righteousness. And then the other side is called merciful. And the two things are wielded by the great being, the great avatars, and so on. Now, the great avatar comes at the end of a great age. In the East is known as Kalki. And this is the 10th avatar of Vishnu, of the god Vishnu, the 10th avatar. There are 10 altogether, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and finally 10 that sums it up, comes at the end of every great age. And I think from studying all the historical records and other things like that, that this is probably the end of a mega cycle of many great ages, not just one great age, but many great ages. And other people have come to that same conclusion. So what that means, I don't know. Well, I think it means what different prophets, including Francis Bacon, have said, that we're about to go from one level of human development into a much higher level of humanity, a raising of vibration, some people call it. Going from school to universities, that's another way of describing it. So you've got to pass the exams. Now, Kalki is known as rejuvenating existence. So I'm missing my notes here. Rejuvenating existence by ending the Kali Yuga, which is the darkest and destructive period. The darkest of the moment of that, coming right at the end of the Kali Yuga. He rejuvenates existence by ending this and removing adharma, which means discord, unrighteousness, and evil, and ushering in the Satya Yuga, which means the golden age. In other words, we go from the darkest time into a golden age. It's extraordinary, isn't it, that we should suddenly be doing that? But of course, we have to build the golden age. It doesn't suddenly appear just like that. We actually have to create it, but we're given the chance of doing that. Now, adharma is also described as that which is not in accord with the Dharma. So to give it its full description, it summarizes as the adharma is discord, disharmony, unnaturalness, wrongness, evil, immorality, unrighteousness, wickedness, and vice. Just to put it out. You have to keep checking yourself, you know. What have I done wrong in my life, and so on like that. Now, Kalki appears symbolically riding a white horse and wielding a fiery sword. And where we heard that before. And interestingly, also the name Kalki is derived from Kal, K-A-L, which means time. And time is the one who rescues truth. So I'm going to start showing some pictures now. In Revelation, Kalki is known as the rider on a white horse, called Faithful and True. His other name is the Word of God. And just a quote from Revelations chapter 19, verses 11 to 13. Then I saw heaven standing open, and there before me was a white horse, and its rider is called Faithful and True. With righteousness he judges and wages war. He has eyes like blazing fire, and many crowns on his head. He has a name written on him that only he himself knows. He is dressed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is the Word of God. The armies of heaven, dressed in fine linen, white and pure, follow him on white horses. And from his mouth proceeds a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with an iron scepter. He treads the winepress of the fury of the wrath of God the Almighty, and he has a name written on his robe and on his thigh, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So that's Kalki, the rider on the white horse. Now, one can read that description and it can be terrifying in a way, but one should never be terrified if you're a person who acts from love, because then there's nothing to fear. And so this is the guru in its massive appearance, the great guru, the teacher and the tester. And he's also linked with the goddess known as Kali. Kali is known as the 10th Mahavijaya of Parvati. The Mahavijays are a group of 10 tantric goddesses who each form a different aspect of the great mother goddess Parvati, the wife of Shiva. And Kali destroys evil in order to protect the innocent. She's a divine protector. She bestows what's called moksha, which means liberation, freedom from all the evils. And free, as we know, in the word freedom, free comes from a Sanskrit word meaning love. So freedom, actually, real freedom, is a state of love. And that's why in the mystery schools of Rome, they would refer to Bacchus, who's the Roman name for Dionysus. When somebody reached that degree of initiation, they would call him Liber Bacchus, the free Bacchus, Bacchus the free, but also Bacchus who gives freedom to others. Liber Bacchus, Bacchus the free. And this is very linked in, as you know, from what I've written about and talked about before, it's linked up with the names of Francis Bacon and what he did and what he came to do. Now, Kali as a name is the feminine form of time. Kal is the male form and Kali is the feminine form of time. And it means time as the changing aspect of nature that brings things to life or death. So you can see Kalki and Kali go together like male and female to get rid of the evil in order to release us from that and bring us into truth, which means illumination, manifesting the truth. Now, time is known as Chronos or Saturn to the Romans. Time also to the ancients, to the Greeks, was known as Pan. That's another name for time. Chronos is Pan. And so the pan pipes that Pan plays represent that sound underlying all nature, the spirit of nature. That's how Pan is described, the spirit of nature. And it's that sound, that vibration, that sometimes when we can attune to it, you can hear that vibration, and it can actually speak to one intuitively as well. But they're called the pan pipes playing. And what I came to hear was that there's a new sound or vibration starting to be played that started last year. And what I've been taught inwardly by those that guide me, is that during these 12 years we're in now, the panpipes will play, gradually raising the world an octave, whatever that might mean. But an octave in music, of course, is made up of 7 notes and 5 half notes, so that's the 12 years. And I was told the first note, which was last year, was E flat, or D sharp, if you like, E flat. I was told E flat. What that exactly means, I don't know, but Claire Van Kampen, a great friend of ours, we talked to her about this, and she introduced me to some Tibetan bowls and got me to play the E flat. And that's exactly the sound I've been hearing out in nature recently. And it's not quite the same as it was some years ago. So what this is going to mean, we're finding out already. We're starting to find out. We've already had 1 year of this. Anyway, in tradition, Bacon uses this in tradition, that Pan, or time, brings forth the hidden truth. And so he's in his New Atlantis, first 2 versions of it. In 1626, the first one was published, and the second version was published in 1635. Each of them had an emblem of time bringing forth the truth. The first one is time bringing forth the truth out of a cave. Cave representing the darkness, and the darkness representing ignorance. Sometimes a well is used, truth is at the bottom of the well, and then you have to, like bringing up water, you have to lift truth up into the light, out of the darkness into the light. That sort of tradition is used in Freemasonry too. You start off in darkness, but you come into the light. And it's time that enables this to happen. So that's what the first picture shows that I'm pointing to now. Time is this Pan-like figure bringing truth, and truth is always shown as feminine. She represents the human soul, or the perfection of the human soul. And then the other emblem, it shows truth being rescued from envy. This figure here with a serpent wrapped around the leg is the classic symbol of envy. Envy is associated with greed and corruption and all vice. So envy sums up everything that's called a vice. And here truth is being released from the clutches of envy by time, who's flying above her and holding her hand like that. And indeed it is time. We always have to wait for the right moment for something to happen. We can make effort after effort, pushing, really striving, but until the time's right, we don't succeed. You have to. So one of the great lessons of life is to learn to do the right thing at the right time, in the right place, and with the right purpose. That's one of the fundamental lessons. So just think, during these 12 years, the aim is to bring forth truth in the whole of humanity in this way, out of ignorance, or the darkness, and out of the clutches of envy, greed, and corruption, and so on. Huge initiation. And Bacon knew it. He also forecast this. In fact, he left a prayer, which I've been trying to find. I couldn't find it, otherwise I would have quoted it for you, but he leaves a prayer where he sees the darkness that lies ahead. At that time, 400 years ago, he could see the darkness humanity was going to go into, and he prayed that it wouldn't be too severe for us. Because he said, once we're through that darkness, then we can start building a golden age, a new Atlantis, as he symbolized it as. Now, truth, going back to the mythology again, because mythology has clues to this, has the wisdom buried in it, in the myth. The children the children of time, the children of Kronos or Saturn, the children of Kronos and Rhea, Rhea is the feminine aspect of time, their children were known as Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Hades, and Hestia. 3 gods and 3 goddesses, the Olympians, and they're usually given in that order. Zeus is, they're brothers and sisters, but Zeus is seen as also married to Hera in the brother-sister sacred marriage thing that often all societies try to symbolize. I think some of them actually acted it out, but they symbolize it anyway, that thing. Poseidon and Demeter go together, and Hades and Hestia go together, but one can look at them separately. Now, what's not often known by people is the firstborn of those 6 was Hestia. Hestia is the firstborn. She's the eldest. She's the heir, if you like, of the whole thing. It's not a male heir, it's a female heir. Hestia, the firstborn. Hestia is the Greek name for what the Romans called Vesta. She's the goddess of the hearth. She represents what we all have in our hearts, the heart flame of love. That flame of our hearts. And the old teaching is to set your hearts on fire. Break the stone, melt your hearts, and then make them burn like candles till you get that flame, that sacred flame. That's the heart flame. That's what Vesta or Hestia represents. That's truth. Truth lies within us, and she shines with light. That's, if you like, her child. She shines with light. She has it in her. The flame holds that image. That's why the symbol of the mother with the child, the goddess symbol, the pregnant goddess symbol, is used for truth. For that same reason. The heart flame. We all have that. The question is to make it burn stronger and brighter and bigger and so on, and to what's called raise it. But anyway, she was known as the firstborn of Kronos and Rhea, the goddess of hearth and home, family and the state as well. The goddess of the community. And traditionally, first sacrifices or offerings were always made to Hestia. So every time you had a meal, you always offered the first part of your meal to Hestia, to this goddess of the hearth. And then if you had a feast celebrating something special, because feasts were to celebrate something like Christmas or something like we do now, and then you'd have wine as a loving cup, really. Well, the first and last libations of wine were always offered to her at feasts. First and last, the Alpha and Omega, as it were, offering to Hestia. And every time people prayed in the past, the first prayer was always to Hestia, to the goddess of the hearth. And then everything else followed on from that. So this is important to understand this, because we've lost sight of all this. Now, Francis Bacon, in his essay of Truth, he tells you in his way exactly what this means. Truth, which only doth judge itself, teacheth that the inquiry of truth, which is the love-making or wooing of it, the knowledge of truth, which is the presence of it, and the belief of truth, which is the enjoying of it, is the sovereign good of human nature. He's talking about love. And it's like, if we're somebody else, we really love somebody else. We're in their presence, that love presence. It's a lovemaking, it's a wooing of each other. And it's a presence. It's a darshan, if you like, a presence of that love. And you enjoy it. It's fully enjoyable, just being in that pure love. That's what Bacon's talking about. It's something we can all experience if we only love, really, really love. Give love, receive love, and so on. Now it talks about rescuing truth, and truth lies in the heart. We have to discover this love in our hearts. Love her. Love what's in our hearts and in the hearts of other people. Love her. And then raise her heart flame of love, raising it up through the throat into the head. And as the flame is brought up, as we love more and more, that flame will naturally get bigger and will start to rise. And I've seen it in people like that who are full of love. That heart flame's got so big it goes around their head like a big flame coming from the heart. The flame embraces their head, and the light that's in it, like a sun, actually shines through their face and creates the halo around. That's the sun in the flame of somebody who is full of love in action, basically, full of love, loving others, like Jesus said, loving love and loving others. And that's happened, and it creates a different sort of aura. Instead of the psychic aura that's like an egg shape, it actually creates angelic wings. So that's the reason of the Easter egg thing. You know, we're all in our Easter egg, our psychic egg, and we have to learn to hatch out, and then we can fly with angel wings, the different aura known as the celestial aura. But to do that, we have to free that heart flame of love from our hearts, which are wrapped around with all sorts of stony, hard things, or can be. We have to melt all that stone, all that hard wax and so on, make it all flame and raise it up high. And then we are in illumination. We're in illumination. The only thing that does that is love in action. Love in action. And as it rises, it goes through the throat. And the throat, the bones of the throat have 7 bones, and it's like the 7 main notes of an octave, and then you've got the half notes in between. So as you rise up, that's the 12 sequence, if you like, to reach illumination. So that's how I've come to understand how we can relate this to this 12-year Jupiter-Kalki-Kali cycle. It's a period of worldwide transformation and transmutation. Just think about that. The transformation and transmutation of all that is able to be transformed and transmuted, and the dissolution and destruction of all else. And this is so as to birth the world into the new and higher or more evolved cycle, that of a golden age. To achieve this in terms of humanity, all that can be transformed into a heart-based consciousness and desire to do good will occur. To do good, we have to start with goodwill. Goodwill is the same as faith. And then we have to have good thoughts, that's the same as hope. And then doing good actions is charity. Faith, hope, charity, the 3 fundamental degrees of initiation. That's what's, I mean, there are many, many people in the world already do that, but there are others who've not yet started to do that. And there's going to be, well, there's a huge pressure. Things are going to happen. It's going to start to wake people up, wake their hearts up, to try and help each other to start to do it. It's going to require huge international efforts for this. And these 3 degrees, faith, hope, charity, they're known as the 3 craft degrees initiation, also known as the lesser mysteries. And then you go through a psychological death, as it were, and your consciousness rises into a higher level where you know that aspect of truth you just put into practice. You know it, you suddenly understand it, you see it clearly, you know it because you've done it. And it creates light, which is the revelation. And then you enter, in that illumined state, you enter what's called the greater mysteries of initiation, which are also known as the Rosicrucian mysteries. And another symbolism given to it, we give birth to our golden child. Part of us still remains human, mortal, burning like a candle, but you won't get the light without burning of the candle. So we need both the mortal and the ascended, immortal part of ourselves going on at the same time. Now, clearly, in terms of humanity, some will become disciples entering the lesser mysteries for the first time. Initiates already in the mysteries will be raised higher into the greater mysteries, to the Rosicrucian enlightened levels, and those already up there will go on even further. All those who do not make the grade, however, to enter the lesser mysteries will not, as I understand it, and other people before me have understood it, will not, after they die, be able to be reborn on this planet. Instead, their souls will be taken to other places for the incarnatory lessons and experiences. So this is the Last Judgment, and people will be sorted out, like sorting the grain, wheat grain from the chaff. Again, a quote again from Francis Bacon in his Advancement of Learning, the preface. He says, "In sum, I would advise all in general that they would take into serious consideration the true and genuine ends of knowledge, that they seek it not either for pleasure or contention or contempt of others, or for profit or fame, or for honor or promotion, or such like adulterate or inferior ends, but for the merit and emolument of life, and that they regulate and perfect the same in charity." And in his essay of Goodness and Goodness of Nature, he says, "Of all virtues and dignities of the mind, goodness is the greatest, being the character of the deity. And without it, man is a busy, mischievous, wretched thing, no better than a kind of vermin. Goodness answers to the theological virtue charity and admits no error, admits no excess, but error. In other words, we can do it well or do it not so well. I take goodness in this sense, the effecting of the weal of men, which is that the Grecians call philanthropia, and the word humanity as it is used is a little too light to express it. The effecting of the weal of man, what's he mean? Well, weal is an old word. It means the well-being, prosperity and happiness of humanity, the general good, in other words. That's what goodness is, what charity is for. Charity is not just putting some money in a place in the church and something. It's actually doing good in our lives all the time. Now, Bacon's New Atlantis is based on this idea of people living in a charitable way. This New Atlantis represents a new world, and it's symbolized by an island called Ben Salem. Ben Salem means the sun of peace. Sun can be spelled S-O-N or S-U-N. The light of peace. And Solomon's house is known as the College of the 6 Days' Work of creation. And the great being who set it up and given the wisdom out, and presumably still carries on guiding it somehow or other. Great being who's like a Solomon II who created or guided the process of making the New Atlantis. Francis Bacon changed the name of Solomon to Sol-la-mo-na. And if you analyze that, it means sun and moon. Sol or solar and Mona, the moon, sun and moon. And they're associated with male, female together, and their light represent the light, male, female, the light. Another way of calling them is the immortal, mortal king, the one who is mortal and immortal, son of man, son of God, which is a Christ being. And the old names for this was Hermes Trismegistus, Greek name for the Egyptian Thoth, the thrice great, who's also said to be Enoch in the Bible, who is the same as Atlas, who is the great king of the golden age of Atlantis. It's all referring to the same thing. Solomona is the original Atlas, or Enoch. In his new appearance, you could say, the great second coming. So anyway, we're going into 12 years of testing. To each year will raise us a note or half note, and in vibration, so it will bring out labors. So it's like the 12 Herculean labors, 12 labors of Hercules. Of course, not the same, because the myth of the labors of Hercules was created for how things were, the sun moving through the sky 4000 BC, 6,000 years ago. It doesn't apply anymore. And it's also the ordinary movement of the sun through the sky over a year. But we're talking about a precessional cycle and something rather different. So they're labors, but labors like Hercules, you have to make a huge, almost superhuman effort to get through them successfully. And we've already had 1 year of this. And we got 12 of them to get into a true golden age. But we can do it. The hope is we can do it. As another thing I was told when I was younger by a mentor to me, says, well, we're only tested if we're worth testing. So I've always liked that. God only tests us if we're considered worth testing. So let's think of it a very positive way. And to enter a golden age means we've got to start building or creating golden age ourselves. We are the creators, but we've got heavenly help and we've got earthly help, natural help, heaven and earth helping us. But we have to create the future, but always with help from above and below, as Bacon says. That's to say we're co-creators, but it's up to us to make the effort. And these 12 labors of these 12 years will go in the sequence associated with the precessional movement of the solstice sun around the ecliptic during a great age, as I've already mentioned. And the way I've shown it happening, it starts with the creative sign of Taurus sounding the word, and then there's a response in humanity from the opposite sign. So the opposite sign responds, which is Scorpio. And so for this first year we've just been through, it was all to do with Scorpio, which governs the root chakra, which is all to do with staying alive, being alive, pure existence. You want to stay alive at all costs. So we've had the coronavirus challenging us on this, the whole of humanity worldwide. Nobody escapes it. And it's bringing out all that love and kindness and care and help each other to survive. That's what's going on. It's even recreating things where it needs to be recreated to make it possible, and changing people's thinking to make it possible. Actually helping each other and organizing things to enable it to happen better, and so on. In this country, to actually save the health service for everybody. Not to think just the few get saved, but everybody. Idea to help everybody. So it's about, if you like, it's about activating the Kundalini. The Kundalini is the central energy. Once that rises, it only rises through good action, and it will go through the chakras, and it will, as it goes through each chakra, it tests each chakra, cleansing them, but also strengthening them and invigorating them, and turning the chakra into light, love light. So that's what it does. So it first the root chakra, then it goes into sacral. In fact, it started the sacral this year. To show you how the signs of the zodiac are associated with the body traditionally. Okay, here's the chart. Pisces, the feet, just rising up the body. Feet, Aquarius, the calves and ankles. Capricorn, the knees. Sagittarius, the thighs. Scorpio, the genitalia, pelvis and rectum. Libra, hips, kidneys and buttocks. Virgo, the abdomen area. Cancer, the breasts, and also the lungs and so on, and Leo, the heart and the spine. Gemini is the shoulders, arms, and lungs, and also it's associated with a little, what's called a veil in the throat there. And so it's also associated with it as being a gateway into the throat. And then the throat is the Taurus, throat and neck. And then Aries, the brow, face, and head, and so on. And then you go into higher Pisces, which is to do with the crown chakra. So that's to do with the old teaching of, you know, imagine the guru standing on your head. His feet is your crown chakra, and your feet crown nature beneath you. So this is one of the secrets of being a pilgrim, walking the land in love. You are blessing the land like your guru blesses you above you, the immortal guru above you. It's I mean, this is ancient wisdom, ancient tradition, so it's been tested out by thousands, millions of great sages, great beings over millennia, and I find it pretty accurate. Little me, sorry. I think it works. And then it's, if I change the picture again, they're associated with the chakras in this way. Now the Kundalini lies asleep, as it were, dormant in the root chakra, and that's the Scorpio area of the body. But through good action, love in action, or charity, that Kundalini can be woken up, and then it will start to rise up the body, and it starts going through each of the chakras in turn, but it will cleanse each chakra, or purify each one, because that's why it's known as a fiery. It's a fire. The fire rises, burns out what needs to be burnt. It's also symbolized as water rising like a fountain, so it will wash out anything that needs washed out, and leave the chakra clean and shining like a sun. And each chakra is associated with different levels of consciousness that we each have, all for different purposes. So it starts really with Scorpio to awaken the Kundalini. Then you go to Libra. Then you go to Virgo, solar plexus. And then the heart area is associated with two zodiac signs, Leo and Cancer. They're both associated with the heart. And then you get the throat area, again, two signs associated with throat, Gemini and Taurus. And then you get to the brow chakra, Aries. And then eventually you get up into the crown, and you go into a higher state of being, higher state of consciousness, and so on. And they were known in tradition as the higher crown chakras, and symbolized, you know, by the crowns that great sages would wear, like Pope's supposed to be. So you have one crown on the top of, you know, different crowns building up, representing these other levels of higher consciousness that we can go, what's said, go beyond our normal consciousness. And so we're associated with being raised up through all of this, through a complete cycle, 12-year cycle. And it started with Taurus sounding it, and Scorpio responding. So here's a chart I've made, show you roughly how it goes. 2020, Taurus, the creative sound or sign, and Scorpio responding, associated with the root chakra for us. Then this year, got Aries, the creative sign. Libra, we as humanity will have Libra responding, which rules our sacral chakra. And then 2002, solar plex, and so on like that through the whole sequence. In our body, the creative energy is the energy that flashes down the spine from above, that often called the lightning flash or the spear of light, comes down. And then the responsive kundalini is usually symbolized like a serpent, but when it's raised really well, it becomes the fountain of life that illuminates us. So you've got these two things. So that's where the St. George and dragon symbol comes in from originally, is that St. George is the spear of light coming down, and the dragon is the kundalini rising up in response. The two things are needed, working together. So in these 12 years, if I go through each one for you in turn, as best as I can do them. This is the year we've just been through. The root chakra is to do with the will to exist. It's physical and psychological. And it's associated with a vice that's called lethargy when it's unawakened. When the chakra's unawakened, we're lethargic. We don't really care whether we're here or not, you know, just leave me alone sort of thing. And the issues to deal with are to do with survival, and hence the coronavirus pandemic. And that together goes with security, with shelter, with physical comforts, basic needs, and groundedness. And the challenge is to help people to survive, which means supporting each other, caring for each other, and healing each other. The grace it bestows in this chakra is known as freedom from disease, but also knowledge of past and future, and certain psychic powers that this bestows as a grace, what's called a grace. The year we've now entered, you've got Aries as the creative sign and Libra a responsive sign. And Libra is associated with the sacral chakra, and this contains the will to act, to procreate. Doesn't just mean to say, you know, procreate babies or something. It procreate businesses, procreate a work you're going to do in some sort of way, a will to act. Its vices are the urge to combat or struggle, to fight each other, and also sexual perversity associated with the vices in this chakra. And the issues to deal with will expand to involve procreation, involve families, homes, work, finance, but also sensual feelings, sexual urges, and fantasies. The challenge will be to heal the sick, feed the poor, shelter the homeless, and care for each other in nature. And that's already showing up in a very big way. The challenge is how do we make sure everyone's got enough money to feed themselves? Have they got a home, you know, a roof over their head? Have they got work, or are they out of work? You know, got to help each other, support each other. That's the big test now. And it builds on what's gone before. It's like building a house. You get to the second course, you don't get rid of the first course because you got to the second course. You still need the first course, and then you build on top of that. So we still need our hospitals and so on, for instance, you know, to help people survive. But then we need also now to deal with the issues of work and feeding each other and things like that. So also, challenges also involve how do we create a new and better and more balanced, harmonious, healthy work environment and business and industry and banking system, because banking system, the money is involved with the sacral chakra. How do we develop better and more suitable philosophies and politics and laws? These will all be challenges given to humanity worldwide, not just any one particular country. Well, the grace that comes with this chakra is freedom from death and disease. Imagine that. An astral travel with memory. Well, great advances have been made with science in terms of finding out how to deal with disease to keep us alive for our full number of years we're meant to be alive for, whatever that might be. And so then we go 2022, which is next year, after this year is finished. Here you've got Pisces as the creative sign and Virgo responds. So this is to do, we'll feel it in terms of the solar plexus chakra, because we're responding to it. And the solar plexus chakra is to do with the will to acquire, to succeed, to conquer, to relate to each other, or to relate to something. And we actually need these things in order to get on in the world, but they can go wrong. So the vice associated with this is selfish desires. People who only want things for themselves. Selfish. It's also known as lust in that sense. Lusting after things. Selfish desires. And the issues to deal with will be to do with ego is with name, fame, authority, acquisition of wealth, possessiveness, selfishness, aggression. This is going to be a huge challenge for a lot of the world. So the challenge will be for everyone worldwide to share their wealth, and also not to rob or steal or exploit harmfully, including from the earth, from nature. So it's going to be a particular challenge to the greedy, the corrupt, the selfish people, for them to learn to surrender, to share, and to care for others and the environment. Doesn't mean to say nobody has to be wealthy and so on. You know, it's one of the attributes of mankind to actually make things better and better, but not just for yourself. That's the point. Make it better for everybody as you do this. So prosperity is a great thing if it's done with wisdom and love. But we then help the benefit. We spread the benefits. That's the power. That's the point of it. So the grace that comes with this, if we do it well, is the power of transmutation, the power of healing, psychic clairvoyance, astral emotional sensitivity, and sympathy for each other. Now, the other important thing about this chakra, the solar plexus chakra, is that it's known as the cleaning and transmuting center for all energies below the diaphragm, before transference to the higher chakras, beginning with the heart. So in other words, the Kundalini cannot go into the heart unless everything's been cleaned out and the person is living a good life. And then the heart can be open with the Kundalini, and then things really take off. So I see 2022 as being a particular challenge for the planet then. And we've got to get it right. It's got to be right by then. Otherwise, that which isn't right will be just wiped off the scene. And if people don't voluntarily, those who hoard their wealth and so on, hoard things or do things selfishly, even if they're not the mega rich, but even, you know, in the workplace, people hoard what they've got and not willing to share. They're going to be challenged. They've got to learn to share in wise ways, generous ways, but wise ways, and so on. And I see this even challenge to religions. You know, religions can't be dogmatic, I'm right, you're wrong sort of thing. They've got to learn, everybody's got a point, and so everyone's got a bit of truth, let's share it. And so like that, they've got to become more generous towards each other and so on. This has already started to happen, but there's still some way to go. So I see 2022 as pretty big thing for humanity. And then we go into hopefully we're going to 2023 in a good way. 2023, you've got the Aquarius being the creative sign, and Leo is responding. And Leo is associated with the heart chakra. And it's the male aspect of the heart chakra to do with what's called the wisdom of the heart. And the will of this chakra is the will to love. And courage goes along with that in its male aspect. The will to love in a courageous way. And the issues to deal with, will be to do with love, with compassion, devotion, empathy, sharing, selfless service, and group consciousness. There are no vices to this, but there is the challenge of wise courage. Courage that is wise, love in action, courageously, but which is also wise. But of course we learn by our mistakes. And the grace that comes with this is comprehension, sympathy with others, spiritual clairaudience and clairvoyance, traveling at will, such as by projection in sympathetic love, and so on like that. So if we get through that test, the solar plexus, and into the heart area, I think things will start to go a lot smoother. There'll still be the tests coming, but they'll be a slightly different nature, really. And it must be possible, otherwise we wouldn't be being tested as a humanity. In 2024, we got Capricorn as the creative sign and Cancer responding. Cancer is also associated with the heart chakra, but it's the feminine aspect to do with what's called the intelligence of the heart. So again, the will is will to love, but love with compassion. The male aspect is courage, and the feminine aspect is compassion, the enveloping love. The issues to deal with will be to do with love, compassion, devotion, empathy, sharing, selfless service, and group consciousness. And the challenge will be intelligent compassion. Have compassion, but intelligently. But we've already learned to be courageously wise. So then we got to learn to be intelligent as well. The grace that comes with this is comprehension and sympathy with others, spiritual clairaudience and clairvoyance, traveling at will, and so on, the same as before. And 2025, got Sagittarius, the creative sign, and Gemini responding. This is the throat chakra in terms of the lower throat, the gateway into the main throat chakra. And the will of the throat chakra is the will to hear, to speak, and to create. So it's said that when the Kundalini reaches up to this point in the throat, this is when the devotee longs only to talk and hear of God. That's the different sort of teachings are given out. Well, the real devotee is the one who loves love and loves each other, and you only want to hear that love talking within you and around you and so on. You're just longing only to hear this. The issues to deal with will be to do with devotion, with partnership, with creativity, self-consciousness, intuitive consciousness, and inspiration. And the challenge will be to create intelligently, intuitively, wisely, and lovingly. And the grace that comes with this is clairaudience and healing and purifying. So this center is known as the center of purification, or purgatorial center. It makes one absolutely pure in love. And then we go on to the main throat chakra. Scorpio is the creative sign, and Taurus is the responsive sign. Again, it's the will to hear, to speak, and to create. And so it's very similar issues again. Issues to deal with would be do loving creativity, intuitive consciousness, and inspiration. But when the inner voice, we'll start hearing the inner voice through the intuition. We hear that inner voice much more strongly when it reaches up into the higher throat. And then it'll want to transfer to the brow chakra so we can actually see what we're hearing. And this is quite powerful. If we speak under direct inspiration, it comes through the outer major chakra at the back of the neck, and that links with the throat chakra, then you know, the greater, higher wisdom can speak directly through us under inspiration and out through that higher throat chakra, the main throat chakra, in that way. So it's a very powerful chakra in time. And then we get beyond that, we get into 2027, we got to Libra creates and Aries responds, and Aries associated with the brow chakra. This is to do with the will to see, to understand, to know, to command, to put into action. Our will is what we want, you know, it's our desire, but that's what it means. The will to see, to understand, to know, to command, and to put into action. It does have vices, because the energies of the lower chakras will bypass the heart and go into the brow chakra, and there it brings about the vices of the brow chakra. If the Kundalini comes up through the heart, through the throat to the brow, then it brings only good thoughts and good visions and so on. But we have to clean the brow chakra. And so the vices associated with this are arrogance, dominance, destructivity, criticism, harshness, and divisive thoughts. Well, we've seen this very much in what I call the brow chakra of the planet, or the television, the mirror of the world, really, holds the mirror up to the rest of the world. But we've seen all these vices very, very clear over the last few years, and particularly recently in what's been going on in the United States. But it applies everywhere in the world. You know, these vices exist everywhere, and we're going to be given the chance to transform them into something better and kinder and more loving. So the issues to deal with here will be to do with seeing clearly, envisioning, understanding, balancing and integrating rational thought with imagination and memory, and making good decisions and good commands. So the challenge will be to see clearly and distinguish truth from non-truth, to understand, develop good ideas, be hopeful, be humble, offer ideas up to the Most High, decide and command courageously and compassionately. So you see all the time as we go through these years, all the chakras are still involved with it, even though the main impulse will be on a particular chakra. But nevertheless, for all humanity, all our chakras are still involved in this. And so we're seeing these things come out to the fore and what we have to deal with. If we have reached this point, that year, 2027, successfully, the grace will be given is true understanding, revelation, knowledge of God, qualified knowledge of God, knowledge of truth. It's called qualified illumination. So if humanity as a whole gets that far, it's doing blooming well, being a state of revelation of some kind, state of illumination. Then 2028, Virgo creates and Pisces responds. Now, Pisces is associated with the crown chakra, the will to be in a spiritual sense. It's to do with universal consciousness or enlightenment, full self-realization. The grace it bestows is universal consciousness, knowledge of unqualified knowledge of God. It's also known as going beyond into the universe, if you like. Your consciousness suddenly expands beyond form as we know it into the universe. That's why those who, through meditation practice and other practices, they go into that crown consciousness, when they come back to a brow consciousness, they can't really put into words what they've experienced. You know, you can try, but it will always fail to do it justice, really. It's said also, it's about, it's something about which one cannot speak. Therefore, it's known as the the great mystery, and symbolized by sub rosa, beneath the rose. Because if you're in that consciousness of the rose, as it's called, if you come below it, you can't really speak of it to others. That's the real, as I understand it, the real meaning of it. And then after that, we go into the 3 final years, which really is taking humanity beyond into another state of being, a new type of humanity. Well, folks, we'll have to see if we make this wonderful beyond, going beyond. I'm full of hope, but it's a heck of a lot of work to do. I think you'll agree. I'd like to end with another quote from Francis Bacon, from his Advancement of Learning. Charity, which is excellently called the bond of perfection, because it comprehendeth and fasteneth all virtues together. So certainly if a man's mind be truly inflamed with charity, it doth work him suddenly into a greater perfection than all the doctrine of morality can do, which is but a sophist in comparison of the other. Nay, further, as Xenophon observed truly, that all other affections, though they raise the mind, yet they do it by distorting an uncomeliness of ecstasies or excesses, but only love doth exalt the mind, and nevertheless at the same time doth settle and compose it. So in all other excellences, though they advance nature, yet they are subject to excess. Only charity admitteth no excess. For so we see, aspiring to be like God in power, the angels transgressed and fell. But by aspiring to be like God in knowledge, man transgressed and fell. But by aspiring to a similitude of God in goodness or love, neither man nor angel ever transgressed or shall transgress. For unto that imitation we are called, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute and calumniate you, that you may be children of your Father who is in heaven, who maketh his sun to rise on the good and the bad, and reigneth upon the just and the unjust. I mean, Francis Bacon just repeats what Jesus taught. He always saw his role as, his work was to help people understand better what Jesus actually said, the wisdom that he said, and to emphasize this charity. As I understand it, what Bacon has said, just be good, leave a good life, and that's better than all these different yogic practices and whatnot like that. All these other practices are good, but the main thing, which really does the trick, is just love each other, do good, charity. And anybody can do that. Anybody. That's the wonderful thing. Okay, I'll end my talk there. Hope it wasn't too long for you all. Thank you very much for listening.